While on the surface, the realm seemed to be stable, even with the issues the Dornish integration into the kingdom of House Targaryen had caused. Daeron had done much to right the wrongs of his father, and his marriage to Queen Moriah had produced 4 sons, who in turn had their own sons. It very much seemed the succession was more than secure. But bubbling under the surface, whispers and conspiracies were in reality running rampant among the lords of Westeros, and the divisions that caused the Blackfyre rebellions began to deepen, even if we can only see it through the lens of the knowledge of events to follow. But even in King Daeron II's eldest son, and seemingly strong heir Baelor Breakspear, the men who would go on to support House Blackfyre found issue. The concern of the power the Dornish now held over the Seven Kingdoms had created an air of tension among the lords of the Stormlands and Reach. In truth, to these lords, when looked upon Baelor Breakspear's dark hair and eyes, they muttered that he was more Martell than Targaryen. Even though he proved a man who could win respect with ease, and was as open-handed as his father, the issue of Baelor's Dornish heritage and remarkable lack of Targaryen features resulted in the knights and lords of the Dornish marches coming to mistrust Daeron, and thus by extension, Baelor as well. The divisions between the Marcher Lords and the Dornish only became more perilous, and it slowly began to look more and more like the old days of the Dornish wars and the thousands of years of bloodshed before Aegon had conquered Westeros, back to a time when the Dornishmen were the enemy to fight and defend the kingdom from, not the rivals for the king's attention, with one hand on the Iron Throne itself. Some even spoke of rumours that this had been the Dornish plan since the killing of King Daeron I in Dorne during his fell conquest, that the marriage of King Daeron II and the Prince of Dorne's sister in the aftermath of the war was always part of a larger Dornish conspiracy. Who were these disgruntled lords to turn to in order to right their perceived wrongs? They would look to Daemon Blackfyre. He had grown tall and powerful, half a god among mortal men, and with the Conqueror's own sword, Blackfyre, the sword of kings in his possession, given to him by none other than his father, King Aegon IV. Looking back now with the context to history and knowledge, King Aegon bestowing the ancient Valyrian steel sword upon Daemon can be considered as one of the seeds of the rebellion that had been planted before anyone was even aware of it. And these seeds took years to bear fruit, but when they did, it would bring fire and blood, blood and fire. And once again, the Seven Kingdoms of Westeros and its lords from the Wall to Dawn would tear itself apart anew. The peace brought in the wake of the Dance of the Dragons was now nothing but a smouldering ash and a fading memory left in dusty history books on the shelves of the libraries of the Citadel. It seemed like all the lessons learned had been forgotten. Much like the Dance of the Dragons, the Blackfyre Rebellion did not start overnight. It was a slow burn over many years until things exploded, suddenly and quickly. There was no final insult, no great wrong, that led Daemon Blackfyre to turn against his half-brother, King Daeron II. While many stated his love of Princess Daenerys, the idea in itself is inherently problematic, as if the Blackfyre rebellions were truly all for the love of Daenerys, how is it possible 80 years passed before the rebellion bloomed? That was a long time to harbour thwarted love, especially when Rowena Tyrosh had already given him 7 sons and daughters beside, and Daenerys had also borne Prince Maron several heirs. Some point to the claim that Daemon still hoped for a polygamous marriage with Daenerys, something he could only do as king. Regardless, 8 years is a long time to wait, but it is reasonable to deduce that if Daemon Blackfyre loved Princess Daenerys, it would certainly be a factor that would lead him down the path of rebellion, but perhaps not the primary reason. In truth, the seeds found fertile ground because of Aegon the Unworthy. Aegon had hated the Dornish and tried himself to war against them, and there was many lords who desired a return to those days of bloodshed. Despite Aegon's associated misrules, they would never be happy with this new, peaceable king in Daeron. Many famed warriors looked on with dismay at the peace in the realm and the dornishmen in the king's court, and thus they began to seek Daemon Blackfyre out. Perhaps at first, Daemon Blackfyre merely indulged such talk for the sake of his vanity. After all, many years had passed between the first man approaching Daemon and the actual rebellion. What, then, tipped Daemon over the edge into proclaiming for the Iron Throne itself? While we can never know 100% for sure what happened exactly and the true honest reasons Daemon rose up, what we can say is that it seemed likely that it was another one of the great bastards, Aegor Rivers, known as Bittersteel, and his master-at-arms, Sir Quentyn Ball, who played a huge factor in convincing Daemon. Many have put forward it was perhaps Bittersteel's bracken blood that made Aegor so unpredictable and so quick to take offence. Perhaps it was the fall of the Brackens in King Aegon IV's esteem, leading to his own exile from court. Or perhaps it was only his rivalry with his half-brother and fellow bastard Brynden Rivers, who had been able to maintain his close relationships at court, as Bloodraven's mother had been well loved during her life and was fondly remembered. So the Blackwoods did not suffer as the Brackens did when the king cast off his respective mistresses, thus deepening the historic hatred between the houses even further. There are even rumours that perhaps Brynden and Aegor Rivers quarrelled over the love of their half-sister, Shiera Seastar. Whatever the case may be, Aegor Rivers soon began to publicly press Daemon Blackfyre to proclaim for the throne, and all the more so after Daemon agreed to wed his eldest daughter, Calla, to Aegor. The history books remark the following: "Bitter his steel may have been, but worse was his tongue. He spilled poison in Daemon's ear, and with it came the clamouring of the other knights and lords with their grievances against King Daeron II, citing many reasons for their support. But it came down to two most common among them. While many would cite the Dornish influence as the reason for their support, many also began to recall the rumours that King Daeron was not truly the son of Aegon IV, but rather his brother, Aemon the Dragon Knight. For many, Daemon being a legitimised bastard seemed like the obvious solution to the problem. The growing power of the Dornish and the unrest it caused in the southern kingdoms and along the Dornish marches, the influence of men such as Sir Quentyn Ball and Aegor Rivers, rumoured discontent at Daenerys' marriage to Prince Morian Martell, the rumours of the bastardy of King Daeron, and the fact that King Aegon IV had legitimised Daemon and given him the Sword of Kings, it all equated to, and it all led to one inevitable outcome. In the end, years of such talk bore their fruit, and Daemon Blackfyre made his decision, and with it, the first Blackfyre rebellion began.